TRT Dünya gündeminden iyi akşamlar. Programda Gürcistan Cumhurbaşkanı Giorgi Margelaşvili ile konuşacağız. Güney Kafkasların en stratejik ülkelerinden biri olan Gürcistan, Sovyetlerin dağılmasının ardından birçok badire atlattı. İktidar değişimleri, hatta bir devrim bile gördü. Dünya Ekonomik Forumu toplantıları için Türkiye'ye gelen Gürcistan Cumhurbaşkanı Margelaşvili ile ülkesinin geldiği noktayı, ekonomiden beklentileri, Türkiye-Gürcistan ilişkilerini, Ukrayna kriziyle bir kez daha gözlerin çevrildiği ayrılıkçı ülkeleri, Karadeniz'in güvenliğini ve Gürcistan'ın batıyla bütünleşmesini konuşacağız. Ben Ayşe Süberker, TRT Dünya gündemi başlıyor. Ve konuğumuzla konuşmaya başlayabiliriz. Mr. President, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. I'm very excited to be here. I'm very excited to be in Istanbul, which I like and love very fairly.
Okay, so you came here for the World Economic Forum meetings. Can we start by making an overall evaluation about the forum meetings and your contacts with the Turkish officials as well?
I think the meeting was very impressive. It was something that we all needed, especially in this new reality, in the new realities that are happening in our region. It was a great opportunity to talk with leaders of different countries. It was an opportunity to talk with representatives of business community, of academia, and discuss with them future and developments of our region and globally of Europe and Asia. I think that it was good, it was successful, and it will bear fruits in future as well.
Okay, I have some headlines for you, of course, but before that, let's take a look at what kind of country Georgia is, and then we'll start talking about our main headlines. Evet, Gürcistan dedik, coğrafi konumuyla Güney Kafkasya'da stratejik öneme sahip bir ülke. Sohbeti biraz daha derinleştirmeden önce gelin kısaca Gürcistan'ın yakın tarihini bir inceleyelim.
Güney Kafkasya'nın Karadeniz'e açılan kapısı Gürcistan, coğrafi konumuyla Asya'dan Avrupa'ya uzanan koridordaki en stratejik ülkelerden biri. 60.700 kilometrekarelik ülke, kuzeyde Rusya, doğuda Azerbaycan, güneyde Ermenistan ve güneybatıda Türkiye ile komşu. Sovyetler Birliği'nin dağılmasının ardından yeniden bağımsızlığını kazanan ülkenin başkenti Tiflis. 1,5 milyona yaklaşan nüfusuyla Tiflis, Güney Kafkasya'daki en eski ve en büyük şehirlerden biri. Gürcüce Skartveli olarak adlandırılan ülke, Gürcülerin dışında pek çok etnik gruba da ev sahipliği yapıyor. 4,5 milyona yaklaşan nüfusun %83'ünü Gürcüler, %6'sını Azerbaycan Türkleri, %5'ini Ermeniler ve diğer azınlıklar oluşturuyor. Ülke yakın tarih boyunca çalkantılı dönemler yaşadı. Bağımsızlığın hemen ardından özel bölgelerde başlayan ayrılıkçı hareketler savaşları da beraberinde getirdi. Ülkenin ilk Cumhurbaşkanı Zviad Gamshaurdia döneminde yaşanan bu istikrarsızlık, Eduard Shevardnadze'nin yönetime gelmesiyle aşılabildi. 2003 yılında ise bu kez Shevardnadze yönetimine karşı başlayan gösteriler, Gül Devrimi olarak adlandırılan bir yönetim değişikliğine yol açtı. Gül Devrimi'nin ardından başlayan Saakashvili dönemi ise geçtiğimiz yıl Kasım ayında yapılan seçimlerle son buldu. Gürcistan Rüyası adlı seçim bloğunun adayı Giorgi Margelaşvili oyların %62'sini alarak ülkenin yeni Cumhurbaşkanı oldu.
Evet, Gürcistan Cumhurbaşkanı Margelaşvili ile konuşmaya devam ediyoruz. Mr. President, we just ended the news that said you took office as president last November 2013. And we know that Georgia has gone through some politically high tension times because then President Saakashvili and the government had some serious problems, but it seems that you have overcome this. Can you make an evaluation of your one-year presidency? How is things in Georgia?
Well, I think that Georgia has gone through a dramatic development period. We are in a complicated region, and it took time to stabilize our country economically, socially, politically. What we have during the last year is the consolidation of our democracy. The governments are changed now through elections. We've seen here in the video how government was changed through protest during Shevardnadze's time, but now we have stabilized our political system and government is changed through democratic elections. We are also trying to stabilize and further our economic development. We saw here in the video President Shevardnadze, who was one of the first to start a very interesting partnership which is linking Caspian Sea with the Black Sea and further. So this partnership is a very firm partnership of Georgia and Azerbaijan, which is linking these two countries into a further partnership with Turkey. And here we see Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan project. Here we see Baku-Tbilisi-Erzurum project. And Garsi Railway. Baku
Trans-Anatolian
which is furthered now to Trans-Anatolian pipeline, gas pipeline, which is giving great opportunities to development of the whole region, including Turkey.
We will come to the regional development and regional stability and cooperation in the minutes to come. But since you said that the political system is stabilized now, what is Georgia's priorities?
Well, our priority is to stabilize and regain our territorial integrity, which is one of the problems that we have with our northern neighbor, with Russia. Because in 2008, Russia has occupied our territories. 2 territories on the north of Georgia have been occupied. This is one of our main priorities, is to regain these territories, to stabilize and deepen our economy, which has great potential. Georgia has, a couple of months ago, we have signed an association agreement with the European Union.
Yes.
This gives a great potential for development of economy. To conduct all these projects, we need peace in our region, and that's what is very important for us.
Yes, peace and economy are the priorities. Now, if you allow me, let's take a look at Georgian economy, because after the dissolution of the Soviet Union, you had gone through different times and then political instability. But I believe last year you managed to grow by 3.2%, which is a great gain. Let's take a look at your country's economy and then we'll continue. Evet, Gürcistan'ın Sovyetler Birliği içinde ekonomisi en güçlü ülkelerin başında geliyordu dedik. Ancak bağımsızlıkla birlikte bir türlü tam olarak ayaklarının üzerinde de duramadı. Ekonomik istikrarsızlıklar yaşadı ama yeni yönetimle birlikte ve hayata geçirilen yapısal reformlarla ekonomik kalkı da hayata geçmeye başladı. Bir bakalım Gürcistan ekonomisine.
Sovyetler Birliği döneminde birlik içinde yer alan ülkeler arasında en güçlü ekonomilerden birine sahip olan Gürcistan, bağımsızlığın ardından ciddi ekonomik sorunlarla karşı karşıya kaldı. Yaşanan iç çatışmalar ve siyasi istikrarsızlık ekonomik kalkınma için gerekli adımların da atılmasını engelledi. Tiflis yönetimi bu sorunların üstesinden gelebilmek için son 20 yılda önemli yapısal reformlara imza attı. Özelleştirme, vergi sistemi, kamu harcamaları, yolsuzluk ve kaçakçılıkla mücadele gibi yasal ve finansal konularda yeni düzenlemelere gidildi. Bu adımların sonucunda son yıllarda ülke ekonomisi gözle görülür bir toparlanma içinde. Resmi İstatistik Kurumu'nun verilerine göre Gürcistan ekonomisi geçtiğimiz yıl %3,2'lik bir büyüme kaydetti. 2013 itibariyle gayri safi yurt içi hasılada 16,1 milyar dolar seviyesine ulaştı. Aynı yıl Gürcistan'ın dış ticaret hacmi de bir önceki yıla göre %6'lık bir artışla 10,8 milyar doları buldu. İhraç edilen başlıca ürünler ise demirli alaşımlar, yaş sebze, meyve ve kimyasal gübre. Petrol ve petrol ürünleri, ilaç ve hububatsa Gürcistan'ın ithal ettiği başlıca ürünler olarak öne çıkıyor.
Evet, Gürcistan Cumhurbaşkanı Margelaşvili ile konuşmaya devam ediyoruz. As we said in the video that you finally managed to grow by 3.2%. Thanks
that
to
was
the
last
structural,
year.
That was last year.
This year we are expecting 6% economic
6%
growth.
economic. How did you do that?
Well, we have a very interesting economical environment in Georgia. Georgia is one of the best in the world by doing business. It is one of the easiest country to open businesses in Georgia. We have one of the lowest taxation rates in Europe. We have a very comfortable service system for businessmen and for businessmen and for civilian services. But not only that, we are opening great possibilities. Now, when we are talking about Georgian economy, I have to go back to something we have already talked about. It is a country located between Caspian and Black Seas.
Yes.
So it is a country that is very crucial for transferring commodities, energy resources, other goods from Asia to Europe and from Europe to Asia. In this respect, we are now furthering our infrastructure by building a railway which will actually go from Azerbaijan and through Georgia and link to Turkish railway system. As I have already mentioned, we have developed energy transportation lines from Caspian, not only to Black Sea, but also to Turkey. And the project which we are now talking and developing is the Trans-Anatolian project,
Yes.
and also the TAP project, which is furthering the energy resources even further to Europe. It is very interesting, and not only energy supply projects. Georgia is traditionally a very comfortable country for agriculture.
Yes.
Greeks were calling us the nation who are taking care of land, and so we are a nation that has originally been very active on the agricultural market. But many of our dear Turkish audience knows how interesting Georgia is in respect of tourism, because we also, like Turkey, present a great opportunities of tourism on Black Sea coast, but also in high mountains and in the valleys of eastern Georgia. So Georgia is becoming more and more interesting for development of different projects, including management of the goods that is going through this transportation system. One of the very interesting new advantages in this respect is the association agreement and deep and comprehensive trade agreement with Europe, which gives possibility to investors to come to a country which has a very favorable business climate, invest into country, and take their products to European markets without any taxation. This is very interesting, and so we have more and more people getting interested in investing in our country. So I think the prospects are great, opportunities are great, and I believe that more and more people will be interested in investing in a country which is very hospitable for tourists, for friends, and for businessmen.
So how is life for a regular Georgian citizen in your country?
Well, I think we still are wrestling with many problems. We have not very high GDP yet, and we are developing in this respect. But one of the main problems is the labor market. We think that there is much more to be done to get people engaged into labor-intensive businesses. And our government does quite a lot on investing in logistics, in tourism, in agriculture, which are basically labor-intensive areas. But most serious problem are our refugees, which we have internally in the country. These are displaced people from the occupied regions of Abkhazia and Ossetia, which have been occupied by Russia 6 years ago.
Yes.
With 300,000 people are displaced from the places of their traditional locations.
Homelands.
Places where their ancestors are buried, places where they have been living for tens of centuries. And now they are living in barracks, and there is no good explanation why this is happening. And this is a pain that we are all trying to solve.
unfortunately, given the current circumstances across the world, there are millions of refugees, unfortunately. If we get back to Turkey-Georgia relations, we always say that it's culturally and historically bounded. But now the trade comes in, and they are the biggest partners, Georgia and Turkey, and the trade volume just reached, I think, $1.5 billion. What can you say about that? You mentioned the projects, Bakü-Tbilisi-Ceyhan, Trans-Anatolian project, and the railway project. But apart from those, what can two countries can do?
Well, I mentioned the big and global projects. But Georgia-Turkish relationship has enjoyed many of very small and successful enterprises. When, with our unfortunate political development with Russia, Georgia had a very complicated situation for trade and development. And Turkey has always been a very reliable and friendly partner on developing our joint trade and giving opportunities to Georgian businessmen to develop their relations with Turkey. So, starting from the independence, first days of independence, and continuing, Georgians started communicating with the Turkish colleagues, and the volume has been constantly growing. Now,
what is the target, for example, for last year?
Well, we are furthering the investment, and we are furthering our joint trade portfolio. The important thing is that we have, as governments, we have destroyed any kind of barriers between Georgian Turks, and we have visa-free regime. We have zero trade, zero taxation regime, which creates the most favorable format for business to develop. Together with this, let's say, environment, as governments, we are developing global projects, and normally small businesses are linked to these global formats.
Before that, you talked about how Georgia is an easy country to invest in, how it is open for the legal matters. So, and I know that lots of Turkish firms and Turkish businessmen are operating in your country. What are the future opportunities for more Turkish businessmen to come and invest in your country?
Well, first of all, I've mentioned a new, very interesting opportunity, which is the DPEF Comprehensive Trade Agreement with Europe. Now we are opening possibilities for our Turkish partners to invest into a country to invest and develop businesses in a country which has basically free access to European market. Turkish businessmen are doing the same on their own in Turkey, but this is new opportunity. Further, I think that we are creating great opportunities to invest into logistics infrastructure, which will be developed together with the railway system, which will be going from Azerbaijan through Georgia to Turkey, and the system will be carrying more and more goods, and the logistics infrastructure is a very interesting area. There is also an interesting area of investment that is already explored by our Turkish friends, which is tourism. But I would call for investment into agricultural sector. For the last 20 years, governments were not paying much attention to the agriculture. Now, the new government has invested more and more in stabilizing and developing agricultural sector and agricultural goods. So now investing in agriculture is really something very prosperous and will bring great opportunities to businessmen.
If we get back to the giant projects, as we mentioned a couple of times, Bakü-Tbilisi-Ceyhan project, it's underway, it's going on. Trans-Anatolian project, it's of crucial importance. It's going to be translated into life in a couple of years, I think. These are all good for economic reasons, but if there is no political stability in the region and through these projects run, what would you say about that? Economy is okay, but if stability is not...
It's a double-ended stick, I would say. You further economical partnership, you increase stability. you increase stability, and that will improve the economical partnerships. Now, when we are talking, and I imagine now when we are talking about trans-Anatolian projects and the TAP project, which is going to Europe, imagine how important that becomes not only for Turkey, Azerbaijan, and Georgia, but how important that will be for the countries in Europe who will be consuming the Caspian energy resources. They will be very much interested in stability of Caucasus, in stability of these pipelines. Imagine how many Caspian countries can get engaged in further commodity transportation. So there will also be our natural brokers for more stability, for more peace, and for more settlement in the Caspian, in the Caucasus region. So we think that it is a joint process. You enhance economy, and that influences stability. You improve stability through a political process, and that creates opportunities for economy. And we, last year, when we have funded in Tbilisi, the Georgia, Azerbaijan, Turkey joint summit, which was a great event and which was attended by President Guli and by President Aliyev, we said that our goal, our political or PR goal, if you want, is to have messages from Caucasus only about opportunities, only about further economic possibilities, and no context and no discussion about any kind of problems.
You talk about peace and stability, but when we take a look at the Caspian Sea, for instance, the status of Caspian Sea has not been determined yet. Some say it's a sea, some say it's a lake. So there's a little bit disagreement on that. And now people are trying to turn the Caspian Sea into a sea of peace. What do you think is going to happen there? I mean, will all sides one day sit and agree on the status?
I think that we should look at the process in a global context. We see new energy in the global Silk Road project, and the energy comes from very big players like China, like our European partners, like Turkey. We are talking about Silk Road. Silk Road originally meant a road which was transferring goods, and that means that these waves, these lines of Silk Road must also bring more settlement into the region. Today I have talked and discussed some of this issue with my Kyrgyz colleague, and we agreed that what we are looking for in future is improving, even furthering Caspian partnership further into Asian countries. So we are talking about Caspian Sea being a sea of peace, and definitely we are talking also very actively about Black Sea being sea of peace and being sea of trade and settlement. I know that there are, I would say, temporary complications in this respect, because part of the Georgia's Black Sea shore on the north of Georgia is occupied. It's Abkhazia, and it's occupied by Russia. We know the issues with the Crimea, but still there is a dedication in Georgians, in Turks, in other Black Sea countries to settle all these problems and bring more peace, prosperity, and trade to our Black Sea region.
At the beginning of our conversation, you said that Ukraine will someday get back its territories, which unilaterally declared independence. We're talking about Abkhazia and South Ossetia. And they were actually autonomous de facto independent since 2008. But when the war broke out, they declared independence. Everyone talks about keeping up the territorial integrity, political unity, but it's been like how many years? 6 years. They live like this. What are you going to do? What steps within a peaceful method you're going to take?
Georgia will regain its territorial integrity and sovereignty, and there is no alternative to this. Self-declared and occupied and supported by Russia, Abkhazia and South Ossetia, we are giving great opportunities to them to return back. There is no alternative to peace, and there is no alternatives to Georgian territorial integrity. I know it's very complicated, and anyone who thinks that there is a quick solution to these issues simply does not understand the problem. There is no quick solution, but there is the only solution will be peaceful reintegration of Georgian territories in Abkhazia and in South Ossetia. Now, we have a great support in this respect. We have our Turkish friends, we have friends all around Europe, all around the world supporting Georgia's territorial integrity. But this is political and international level. More and more people living on occupied territories find out that the new government in Georgia and Georgians want peace with them. They want to give them all the opportunities of integrating into Europe, whether this is developing business, or whether this is visa liberalization with Europe, or whether this is getting any kinds of services and goods that are available on the central government-controlled territories in Georgia. So I think we are sending great messages to people in Sukhumi, to people in Skhindvali, that our future is only united Georgia, built by our joint efforts. We want Georgia to be an effort that Abkhaz and Ossetians are taking together with us. There is no alternative to this peaceful message. And I believe we'll come there. It will take time but you know, walls are broken. That is normal historical truth. There has been no example against this truth. I remember people would not believe that the Berlin Wall would be broken. It fell down. The same way these walls will be broken, and we will recreate a united country together with Abkhaz and Ossetians.
If we get back to the war times, President, then it was Saakashvili, the president, and the diplomatic ties were totally cut off with Russia. Very, very tense times. And then we see some softening of relations lately with
By the way, while talking about this, I cannot omit not to thank our Turkish friends, which were very actively engaged in negotiations about. Personally, they had this very active shuttle diplomacy effort to stop the crisis in that times.
In that time. So the relations, diplomatic relations were totally cut off. It's been like 6 years. What is the latest? I think Russia softened some of its embargoes imposed on you.
It did.
What is the situation there?
It did.
How is your relations?
We declared a very politically difficult but proper position. We said, we know that we have issues that we cannot agree upon. Georgia will never agree about Abkhazia and Ossetia being occupied. We know that this is a difficult issue for Russians as well. But we know that there are areas that we can cooperate in. And that is, first of all, that is trade. And so we intensified the dialogue on trade. And now traditional Georgian products like wine and mineral water are getting back to Russian market, and that is for benefit of Georgians and Russians at the same time. The second area, which we have a great asset, is the cultural relations. Georgians and Russians have been living together in one or another format, whether it was Soviet Union or Russian Empire, but they have living together and developing joint culture. Russian poets, Russian artists would come to Tbilisi, and there were lots of personal relations among Georgians and Russians. We are developing this as well. We will decrease the tension and then start talking about most difficult. And the most difficult question is, why would a superpower like Russia, with huge military, economic resources, occupy a small, friendly neighbor like Georgia? occupy its territories. And what is solution out of this condition?
So what is the level of your relations with Russia at the
We
moment?
are having two international formats. One is in Geneva and the other is in
Yes.
Prague. And of course, we are trying to move to rational discussion on these issues. And we are sure at some point we will come to that main question. What does Russia prefer? Stable, economically viable, friendly, and united Georgia on its southern border, or do Russians prefer to have uncontrolled quasi states on their southern borders? I believe that it is a very easy answer. A friendly, stable neighbor is better.
But given the current state of mind of Russia, it just annexed Ukraine, and lots of happening in the southeast of Ukraine, and they just declared their independence. They have held a referendum. Do you think, is there any resemblance or similarity between what has happened in your country and what is now happening in Ukraine?
It is very important, and you drew a very proper line. I think that what has happened in Ukraine has rung the bell, not only for Georgians and Ukrainians, but for our European partners and for our partners around the world. I think everyone around the world saw that the cases which happened in Abkhazia and Ossetia, and cases of Crimea and Donetsk and Lugansk are the same. They are the part of the same scenario when Russia is talking about Georgia, Ukraine, and other independent countries as their backyard.
Yes.
I think that our European partners, our Western allies, have understood how dangerous this theory is.
But so they started imposing sanctions on Russia, but it apparently
But I
seems
think
Russians are
I
not
think
backing
even
off.
Russians will understand soon how dangerous it is to have uncontrolled small territories, rebellion territories, all around its borders. Now, imagine Russian border having this Eastern Ukrainian problem, Crimea problem, Abkhazian problem, Ossetian problem which comes back to them with a serious problems on serious questions on international forums, serious economic problem because this is the drain of money and nothing comes back, and serious uncontrolled borders. And those nations feeling that they are living in an unfriendly environment. I think that those questions, it has hit some point when the questions have to be already rationally discussed. Because before they were discussed from case to case, now we see not small parts of a conflict in Srinwali, but we see the global picture and the global problem.
During the Georgian-Russian war, we saw NATO making some statements backing your cause, but they never said we're going to intervene militarily, but they just cut off their ties with Russia. And then what is your targets for integrating with the European institutions like the European Union, which you signed some trade agreements, but also there is a NATO membership which Russia hates to maybe think about. So what are your targets on that?
Well, we believe that NATO is a format through which we are able, all of us, to have a much more stable region. Let's talk about NATO-Russian relationship. Russia has a great relationship with Turkey. Turkey is one of the most powerful NATO members. Russia has a great trade relation, and you have tourism, you have trade. In many cases, Russia has very good, even military partnerships with NATO members. Russia enjoys great relationship with Germany, which is NATO member. Russia has great security on its borders with NATO in Baltics and trades with them.
But it's not getting along with the United States.
I mean, when I'm looking at Russia-NATO member country relationships, I have an impression that to have a peaceful, prosperous, good trade, tourism, cultural relations to Russia, you have to be a NATO member. Because, I mean, I would love to have the same level, to enjoy the same level of tourism, economic, and other kind of partnerships like our Turkish friends do.
Yeah.
And Turkish friends are members of NATO traditionally. So what we want to, when we are talking about the NATO context, let me stress, we are never talking about NATO as a resource to solve our territorial problems. And our Turkish friends know that very well through the experiences, especially in the region. What we want from NATO is stability. And we need stability for further prosperity. So let me tell you, neither NATO nor EU are not actions against someone or at the expense of someone. I think through these projects we are bringing more stability to the Caucasus region, and I think that that is a better solution for Russia as well.
If we take a look at the Black Sea, you also mentioned how important stability is restored and maintained in Black Sea. But with the annexation of Crimea, and we see Ossetia and etc., we see Russia taking a great hold in the northern Black Sea shore. What does it mean to you?
It's bad. And we have discussed this with our Black Sea partners, with our Turkish partners as well. We have discussed this with our friends in Bulgaria, because Black Sea is an opportunity should be an opportunity for every member state of Black Sea. Georgia has a great Black Sea shore, and Georgia has great opportunities of trading with Europe, trading with Russia in future, when our territorial stability will be reintegrated, and trading with other countries, including Turkey. So wouldn't it be funny to turn Black Sea, to freeze Black Sea for trade and cooperation? For Russians, for whom sea is very important. I think that all of us, you know, traditionally, Russian Empire was looking at opportunities of getting to Aquatoria of whether it's Black Sea or Baltics, and sea is a very important asset for such a big land country. Wouldn't it be very strange to turn this Black Sea opportunity into freezing the process here? I think that we should be looking at solutions, at the opposite solutions, to turn Black Sea into opportunities and economic and cultural and tourism opportunities.
But on the other hand, Russia sees as a threat closing in to its borders, so that's maybe why it annexed Crimea. And then we see the Western nations imposing great economic sanctions on that. So no one is backing off. So if we talk about Black Sea being a peace sea, it doesn't seem possible at the moment, or would it be
things
possible in the
which
future?
don't seem possible at the moment? The problems that are not solvable at the current moment, they could be solved in future. What we need for those solutions is a proper context of discussion, is the proper tone of discussion. We should be talking not about problems, but we should be talking about solutions. Georgia is ready to talk about opportunities. And I think that at some point, politicians of Russian Federation will acknowledge that fact, that they should be also talking about opportunities for their country rather than occupation and other different sentiments. We are trying to stabilize the environment in that direction, and we know that there will be no alternative to this solution.
Yes.
Of course, in bad case scenario, it will take longer. In good case scenario, it will be faster. But there is no alternative to really solve these problems, because creating problems with the neighbors there is no rational context in this process, especially with neighbors with whom you enjoyed past history, you enjoy cultural ties, and you could enjoy great economic opportunities. So it will happen, fast or slow, but there will be the solution.
Okay. We'll continue to talk, but now we have a video for you. Evet, şimdi biraz da Karadeniz'de güvenliğin sağlanması, aslında bundan bir hayli bahsettik. Projelerden de bahsettik. Gelin bir kısaca göz atalım, ondan sonra konuşmaya devam edeceğiz Cumhurbaşkanı'yla.
Avrasya'daki en önemli iş denizi olarak Karadeniz'deki jeopolitik dengeler Sovyetler Birliği'nin ardından köklü biçimde değişti. Soğuk Savaş yıllarında Türkiye haricinde Karadeniz'e kıyısı bulunan ülkelerin hepsi Varşova Paktı'nın üyeleriydi. Ancak NATO'nun genişleme süreciyle birlikte Romanya ve Bulgaristan NATO üyesi oldu. 2000'li yıllarda Gürcistan ve Ukrayna'nın da Batı ile gelişen ilişkileri Rusya'nın Karadeniz'deki etki alanının daralmasına neden oldu. Ancak Ukrayna'da geçtiğimiz Kasım ayında başlayan kriz, Karadeniz'in güvenliği açısından yeni riskleri de beraberinde getiriyor. Bağımsızlığın ardından Karadeniz'de istikrarın sağlanması yönünde atılan adımlara aktif biçimde katılan Tiflis yönetimi de Ukrayna'daki krizi yakından izliyor. Ukrayna'da uzun uğraşlar sonucu sağlanan ateşkesin zaman zaman yaşanan çatışmalar yüzünden sallantıda olması bölge ülkelerini tedirgin etmeyi sürdürüyor. Bu tedirginliği en çok hisseden ülkelerden biri de Gürcistan. Tiflis yönetimi halen Karadeniz'de güvenliğin sağlanması amacıyla kurulan Black Sea 4 adlı oluşuma katkı sağlamayı sürdürüyor.
Evet, Gürcistan Cumhurbaşkanı Margelaşvili ile konuşuyorduk. The video just summarized what has happened in Ukraine and how it put all the neighboring countries in the Black Sea and the region on alert. And the situation remains as it is as we talk at the moment. You especially stress the unsustainability of this problematic problem, that it is going to be solved in the maybe far future?
It depends. I think we should look to already existing examples. And the already existing example is Georgia. Now let's look at what happened in 2008. Georgia was under military aggression of Russia, and its territories have been occupied. At that point, during the crisis, our Western allies, our friends all around the world, engaged and stopped the aggression. But let's see what happened later.
Yes.
Georgian issue became more and more, it faded out.
Yes. It's maybe
International
forgotten in
forums, international discussions, negotiations, trade with Russia has all overcome this problem. And now we are facing Ukrainian crisis. We are all organized to stop the bloodshed and to stop the process. And eventually this will happen. But the main thing is that all of us has to agree that it is unacceptable to talk with neighbors through military operations, through tanks and through military, through guns. Yeah. If we don't have a consensus on this issue, then it will be a longer time till we solve it. Yeah. And what we need now, together, Georgians, Ukrainians, everyone engaged, is to always tell to Russian politicians that we are not accepting Crimea, we are not accepting Abkhazia, we are not accepting annexations and occupations. This should be an opening remark in every dialogue. And if we agree that this will be an opening remark, the issue will be solved. Because, once more, there is no logic in occupying Crimea, Abkhazia. There is no benefit. Russia does not need these territories. Russia has the biggest...
Doesn't it? But these are very strategic territories. They're not just...
Russia has the biggest territory in the world.
Yeah.
The least that Russia needs is next 10 or 15 square kilometers. It has the biggest country in the world, with the hugest military and economical resources, with lots of oil, gas, trees, and other resources on its territory. Russia is not a country which needs next 10 or 15 square kilometers to develop its infrastructure. So we should understand that these are wars, these are military operations that bring no benefit to people living on these territories, to Russia as a country, and to its neighboring countries. This is absolutely illogical, absurd that is happening on these places. So what we have to do is to remind everyone all the time and not forget about this.
Well, we're coming to the end of our conversation. We have like 4 minutes, but I would like to ask you about the return of the Ahıska Turks, or the misguided Turks, I think you pronounce it. So there has been...
We call them the displaced during the Soviet regime.
Yeah, we call them Ahıska Turks. So they were forced out of their houses, and the return process started a couple of years ago. But we see that this process is moving quite slowly. What is the latest in there?
Let me tell you, well, first of all of us who were living in the ex-Soviet Union have gone through very problematic past. This was a country that would take people from one territory and put them into another territory.
Yes.
Unfortunately for Georgians, this is continuing because, as I tell you, even after destruction of Soviet Union, rights of our citizens are not protected, and we have 300,000 Georgians displaced in our country. But we have been treating that issue very responsibly from the first days of Georgia's independence. And our first president, Zviad Gamsakhourdia, he declared that we will treat this issue with a great respect. And what we started engaging with our European partners is a registration process for these people. Now at this point, I think there are about 6,000 people registered, and above 1,350 people have already received the identity of a displaced person. But this doesn't solve the issue of returning back to the country, because it is one case to have a document, the other case is really to come back. And we've been wrestling for this issue for a while. What should be the conditions that the government could create? A couple of days ago, we adopted a new strategy, including two very important components specifically for those individuals. One is the dignified return conditions. So when these people come back, they come back not into a absolutely irrelevant context, but into a dignified context.
What do you mean by dignified?
Well, it is one thing to have a passport in the country, but the other thing is to enter the country and have conditions to find yourself as a citizen of the country, as a part of that state and that nation. And the second component is also linked with that, and that talks about integration processes. So we will spend resources on teaching them language, on adopting them to existing environment. Of course, this will take time. As I have told you, we are wrestling with the recent 20 years displaced process. I mean, this is the case which has, at this point, it has 70 years history, those people. There are people in Georgia whose displaced has been for the last 20 years or the last 6 years. So let me tell you, our approach is we are going to solve this issue, engaging the dignity and integration process for these citizens.
Well, good luck with that then. Thank you very much for joining us and sparing your time with us. It's been a pleasure meeting you and reading and listening to your views. Thank you very much.
Thanks, it was a pleasure.
Evet, Gürcistan Cumhurbaşkanı Giorgi Margelaşvili ile yaptığımız sohbetin böylelikle sonuna geldik. Yarın Türkiye saatiyle yine bu saatlerde 18 civarında görüşmek üzere. İyi akşamlar.